Hello everyone. Today with this video I'm going to be focusing on the connections of the original program I was sent here to Crestone, Colorado to work with back in 1994. In comparison or in continuation with the program I'm working with now upon my return to Crestone, and I'm now in 2018. I left Crestone in the San Luis Valley in 2000, and I returned in 2017. So I want to kind of piece together this programming, the work I'm doing here, because it's so central to everything I'm doing. And for those of you who are interested in my work and follow it, I felt I should give it a little more comprehensive picture of that. I've mentioned it, of course, before in other articles and whatever, but I wanted to kind of streamline it just a little more because it's leading up to the heart of the sun, the title of this video. So we're going to go into that as well. So to begin, I'm going to some material I wrote at the time when I first moved here in 1994. I'm just reading bits and pieces out of it. So to begin, it is my understanding that the pink pyramid, the Templar, is to be situated near, not far from Crestone. Over a year ago, I was told that myself and certain ISIS Templars would be working with the setting of energetics for the capstone of this pyramid. The blueprint of the Templar was given to Dr. Norma Milanovich by the Ascended Master Kuthumi. I really know very little about this project, other than the Templar pyramid will be accessible to all light seekers of the world. The one video of Dr. Milanovich's on the Templar, which I viewed, gave several correlations with my work, such as the use of the word Templar. I'm going to pause a moment. The ISIS Templars is the name that was given to me by Thoth for the core group that I had at that time. Now they are the Sholar, but it's really energetically just a higher loop, a higher turn on the spiral. Also, the word Templar had been used for me many times through the Thothic stream, back into the 1980s. Different associations, but the word Templar would come up. And then when I was called to name this core group, I was given the name ISIS Templars. Now, wasn't a big student of historical Templars or anything. I didn't have a particular yen to be a Templar, none of that. But this just kept coming up in my material. Of course, now with my return to Crestone in 2017, I have the Priory of the White Stone, which is an actual priory under the true Templar organization, the Knights Templar, which has been revivified and brought back to the planet rather recently. But it is the same lineage as the original Templars. I had no way of knowing, of course, that when I lived here before, that I would be returning with the priory of the actual Templars. So this is all very interesting in its corollary. To continue reading, my project in Crestone with the Crestone Golden Star Temple will, I feel, create a synthesis through time, since all Templamars are time nodes for the future Templar. As the CGS, that's the Crestone Golden Star Temple, will open a time corridor to the third millennium Mazuriel. This access will be a primary orientation for the Templar when it is constructed in this second millennium reality. A lot of wording there. Millennium does not mean 100 years. This is Thoth's version of separating the time shifts. First millennium is where we were. Second millennium was when we separated from the true Rana time wave. And third millennium is where we are going back into the New Earth star and beyond. So let's see what else that might need explaining. Oh yes, the Temple of Mar is the matrix on the planet that has been interfaced here from the future city of Corbola that is on the very lip of the transition into the New Earth star. I know a lot of this sounds so confusing because huge amounts of material, of information are connected to each one of these things, and I'm trying to say it all really fast here. So anyway, the bottom line of this is that Norma Milanovich was planning to build this giant pink pyramid that she called the Templar here in the San Luis Valley, very close to Crestone. Kuthumi was guiding this for her, and or so she stated and believed. I think so too. And but it didn't take place because Crestone just said no, absolutely not. You're not going to have thousands of people pouring into our little town, and the surrounding area. It's just not going to happen. So they had the legal right to stop it, and they did. And I understand that. That would have been a rather large problem for them. So it didn't happen. However, according to Thoth, that was not a problem because the Golden Star Temple that connects through Temple Mar, and a Temple Mar point was anchored here in Crestone by myself when I moved here in 1994. I say I anchored it. I mean, I've facilitated the anchoring of it, of course. So the Golden Star Temple is a golden pyramid connection through the Temple Mar. Now, Norma's attempt to put the pyramid here, the pink pyramid here, the Templar pink pyramid, was obviously a corollary to that, but it wasn't that. So despite the fact that she didn't succeed, at least on the physical, was doing that, it still was part of the amalgam of the whole creational experience. And the Golden Star pyramid is here and is a result of the Temple Mar anchoring. So we're going to continue with the reading. Let me see. So as I'm saying, in 1994, my mission in Crestone is completion of a work that began for me in 1980 when I was sent to Cortez, Colorado, also in southern Colorado, not far as the crow flies from the San Luis Valley. It was in Cortez that I was guided by my sources through many dynamic light formats, creating programs for etheric computers in the Ute Mountain and the resonating plateau of Mesa Verde. Now I will re-enter the medicine wheel, the central point of which is the four corners of the U.S., at its outer ring. And there's in parentheses, I say here, for details on the cosmetrics of the Cortez Mesa Verde region and my work there, see source issues for 1980 and 1981, all back issues, which are now available in the portal only, my subscription portal. In Crestone and the Sacred Valley, we will be able to enter the spirit shield of the land through the newly formed Wolf Spirit Lodge. The Shi, High Fairy, have an enclave in the Sangre de Cristo and will join us in our lodge ceremonies and nature magic. Well, we did do some of that, but it seemed like we never really entirely connected strongly to the Wolf Spirit Lodge. I believe the reason for that, and a lot of other things that didn't entirely connect as deeply as I had anticipated at the time, was because there were situations going on in my personal life that were deflecting me from the true work, and which I totally take responsibility for. But as a result, it was like I reached a certain point. Certain things were accomplished, I do believe, like the facilitation of the anchoring of the node of Templemar, one of the nodes, and also, as you'll hear about the anchoring of the Areopax and other things. There were a lot of things that were accomplished, I do believe, but some things were not really done completely before the time was that I had to leave, which was in 2000. And that also was a choice of mine, made from personal circumstance. So, but I wanted to read that because I believe that this Wolf Spirit Lodge is still very much present, and that I will be working with it here again, or maybe I already am, and I don't entirely realize it yet. The blood of Christ and St. John mountain ranges, that would be Sangre de Cristo and San Juan, bordering the valley, this valley here, the San Luis Valley, are our teleport to the Johannine consciousness. Johannine consciousness. Okay, again, I'm just going to make it very brief. This is there's the Petrine consciousness and the Johannine. The Petrine is from St. Peter, the stream of the Christos, going through the St. Peter matrix, so to speak, and Johannine coming through St. John, but not only St. John the Apostle, but John Martinus. And, well, there's a whole story that I'm not going to get into. So anyway, that just gives you an idea. The Petrine is through belief, the Johannine is through inner knowing. So this says, these mountain ranges bordering the valley are our teleport to the Johannine consciousness. I'm being kind of symbolic here, but there's a reference. The regeneration of the Christic blood is exemplified in the Grail mysteries. These mysteries also are seated within the Golden Star Valley, San Luis. Well, this is really coming up strongly now because as of Good Friday of this year, 2018, certain sacred treasures, Thoth calls them, energetic forms, are being transferred to this valley that are out of the heart of the Grail. They are Grail energies, the Grail logos through the dweller crystal skull of the Templar that was transported from a certain sacred mountain in Germany to beneath Mount Blanca, or within Mount Blanca, beneath the sand dunes here. And then a short time later, the Rastaru round table, which is a duplication of the round table in the Ascended Isle of Ruta, the Atlantean Isle of Ruta, guardianed and worked with by the Templis Seratum. So that duplication table that had been under the Great Pyramid for a long time was energetically transported to become also one of the treasures beneath Mount Blanca. And Thoth indicated other treasures, Grail treasures, using that term so that we understand the energetics of it, will be coming to this valley as well. So if you go back to 1994 and hear the statement here where it says the regeneration of the Christic blood is exemplified in the Grail mysteries, these mysteries also are seated within the Golden Star Valley. So this certainly ties into that. To continue reading, Thoth, Chariot of the Sun, on the region of Crestone, Colorado, 6794, states, one of the locations on the planet of the original Sunbow colonization, pre-Adamic. Okay, the Sunbow clan is a part of the, okay, let me redo that. The Sunbow is an ancient star clan from Rigel that came to the planet and worked with the physical earth of the planet at some point when the souls from the lotus, the higher realm, started coming down, breaking with the light of inscription, and coming down and entering the physical reality. So at some point in all of this, the Sunbow Star Clan decided that they needed to come down and set parameters for this energetic configuration that these particular souls were creating. They did that, and in doing that, a grouping of them called the Master Builders set down the monolithic structures. Now, that doesn't mean that they instantaneously built Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids and all of these pyramids. They didn't do that. They set down the geodetic markers for that, for where the buildings would be. And at various periods in time, souls from that sect, the Master Builders, incarnated to do that work physically. So that's kind of how it turned out. So anyway, Thoth is saying that this valley is one of the locations on the planet of the original Sunbow colonization, because when they came down, they had places to live, shall we say, where their temples and whatever were for a time being. They didn't have elaborate temples and elaborate setup here because they were not staying that long, but they did have certain places that there were workshops, you might say, where they were collecting for this purpose. This area has an especially, San Luis Valley has an especially strong etheric charge. Its higher magnetic stability is moving as opposed to fixed, but resonance field is stable. Definitely a sacred land area, one of the Golden Taya allotments. That's land areas allotted by the Master Builders of the Sunbow to ascend in the light principle planetary transfiguration, or LP40. Planetary ascension, in other words. That's a whole topic into itself, and I recently did a talk video on that not long ago. But I believe that would be for portal members. Both ultra and extraterrestrial passageway this area contains, as most portal regions are. However, there is no negative ET foothold. Now, this is an interesting statement because there are in the skies, well, I don't even know if I should use the word negative, but the Greys, the other guys that are working with our secret government and all that stuff. They're flying around out there. They're flying around everywhere, and they're very interested in this region. And we also have the Delta Force enclave here, and black helicopters will fly around and all kinds of stuff. So when he says there's no foothold, it means that they may be cruising and they may have little installations here and there that looking and doing things, but they don't have a say in this area. It's not, energetically, they can't control it in any kind of a way. Ultra-terrestrials are planning to reestablish ancient vortex near Crestone. Of course, that's already been done because that was 1994. Strong She portal, that's High Fairy, was active with the Native Americans several thousand years ago. Sorry, switching some pages here. So then to Thoth, I'm saying, you mentioned opening a vortex in the area. Is this something you might have in mind for me to work with? And if so, would it just be for a year, say, or more permanent? And the answer to that Thoth gave me was, the opening of the vortex would only take a few months, but the results of it of its regenerating in that area would be abundant. Yes, you could be a strong contributor to this entire project, which would continue to accelerate for years to come. How long you stay in the region, however, would be your choice, yours and the angelic guardians. Well, we all know what happened. I left in the year 2000. At this point, Thoth asked me to draw a card at random from the Gaia Matrix Oracle concerning my direct connection to the Crestone Golden Star Vortex and Pyramid. The card drawn was Heart of the Sun, which happens to be one of my favorite cards in the deck. Now, before I go on, the Gaia Matrix Oracle is a marvelous, incredible, as far as I'm concerned, oracle tool that was created by Rowena Patty Kreider. She's since transitioned, but at the time she was very much alive. And when I first found her oracle deck some years previous to this, I contacted her because I was just floored by the similarity in language and focus that she had in her work and that I did in mine. Not all the way through, I mean, not on every topic, but very specifically on New Earth. She used that term. And, there was just a lot in regard to that really got to me, because I don't find my wording very much anywhere, especially not in those days. So I contacted her and we became friends. And as a result, she actually, not as a result, because she didn't move to Crestone to be near me, but as a result of my letting her know about this area of Crestone and the San Luis Valley, she felt it was a favorable place for her. And she moved here as a result of that. And she stayed after I left, but later moved herself. So anyway, her work I really recommend. It's still on the net, I believe. You can find it under Rowena Patty, P-A-T-T-E-E, I believe, Kreider. And her oracle, she has many oracle decks. They're all really great, but my favorite is the Gaia Matrix Oracle. So I drew a card from that, and I received the Heart of the Sun, which still is my favorite card in the deck. And I'm going to read to you about that here. Heart of the Sun, and this is her quoting. This archetype addresses receiving deep nourishment from light and intensifying the light in your heart and DNA. It also states, imagine yourself as a naked woman holding flowers, open and vulnerable, standing on the back of a lion that knows where to go and the pace that is needed according to circumstances. The Heart of the Sun corresponds to Merlin's efforts to rescue and restore the original plan of the Grail. Merlin is a way-shower of New Earth consciousness, similar to the ancient gods of learning, such as the Egyptian Thoth, Greek Hermes, and Judeo-Christian Melchizedek. Well, Merlin, Thoth, according to Thoth, his soul is one of the 5 souls of Merlin. And of course, Hermes is Thoth, and the Greek version of him. And Melchizedek is also, according to Thoth, he was incarnated as one of the souls of Melchizedek. In the case of Merlin, Melchizedek, they were layered souls in those embodiments. Okay, to continue with Rowena on Heart of the Sun, these are mentors who work behind the scenes of the development of the solar system through sacrifice. I'm not exactly sure of her meaning concerning development through sacrifice, but we're going to leave that for the moment. The round table of Etherean legend embodies the new pattern of consciousness for the new Earth. Of course, now we have a round table here, not the very one that author and his knights gathered round, but it is even more significant because it is the child version of the one in the Ascended Isle of Ruta, and that is from which the round table of author was patterned as well, to some extent. The round table consists of equal places for individual endeavors, all incorporating a common purpose of the enlightenment of humanity. The pattern of the great sun temple of Atlantis on the Isle of Ruta embodied the teachings of the Grail mysteries during Atlantean times. Now, Rowena here is quoting from some material that was out there already. Now, as I've stated before, when I received information on the Atlantean Isle of Ruta, I had already read a very brief paragraph in a book mentioning this isle. And that was where Thoth stepped in and said, by the way. And then he took me much more deeply into Ruta, the understanding of it. And it is from Thoth, and I've not read it anyplace else, that he talks about the island having ascended and that whole thing going on from there. But she is quoting here from that original bit of material, I think from the same book that I read concerning Ruta. So I'm going to start over again on that. The pattern of the great sun temple of Atlantis on the island of Ruta embodied the teachings of the Grail mysteries during Atlantean times. Merlin brought the mysteries from Atlantis to Europe and founded the Iberian mysteries, the vestiges of which are still found in the Celtic Grail legends. Merlin's mandate came from Rada, the great primordial being who guided humanity with the great solar pattern of a central sun surrounded by 7 planetary forces. In the heart of the sun, initiation stage of the Grail mysteries, you are challenged to find others with a common purpose to nourish and enlighten all sentient beings. Now that's the end of Rowena's quote there. So then I said after that, when I received the Sinai fragments, okay, before I continue, the Sinai fragments were prophesied by Thoth to me that when my friend, now her name is Estrella, went to Egypt and to climb and to the Sinai to climb the Sinai mountain in sorry about that, Alexa's talking to me. To climb the Sinai mountain.
Here's your reminder. Dance.
To climb the Sinai mountain in the year 1988 on 8/8/88. Thoth said that when you climb it, he said through me to her, when you climb it, look to your feet and there will be something in fragments and pieces. And please bring it back to me, to Maya. So she was climbing the mountain and all of a sudden she thought about it. She looked down at her feet and there they were, the fragments. She brought them back to me. I still have them. And they are central to my journey to Crestone and my return journey to Crestone. So back to it. When I received the Sinai fragments, Thoth revealed that at some point in time, I was to take them into the medicine wheel. The center of this wheel is the four corners of the U.S. From 1980 through 1982, I was sent to live in Cortez, Colorado, located within the wheel, and worked extensively with the inner wheel matrix there. The outer wheel, equally as dynamic, extends to include the southern Colorado region of the San Luis Valley. The Sangre de Cristo, Blood of Christ mountains, which cradle the valley, form the eastern boundary of the medicine wheel. I was also told by Thoth certain other things about my role with these fragments, which I cannot reveal at this time, but the act of carrying them through the energy labyrinth of the medicine wheel was of great importance. These fragments still carry the charge of the greater arc. That's the sacred on. As I passed them down the corridor of the vibratory rings of the wheel, through the window of August 20th to September 6th, the medicine wheel will activate a third millennium or futurized grid in the valley of the golden disk. This will be the first calibration of the disk to the arc of grace in preparation for its future relocation back to its ancient thresholding within the caverns of the blood of Christ. Well, of course, now in 2013, while I was still in Kauai, I was informed that the Ark of Grace had landed. The Sacred On had been reinstalled back into its thresholding chamber, or was being installed at the time I was informed of it, but it is now in the Crest and the Stone, which is Mount Challenger. So At the time I was writing this, of course, this was something in the future. And I had it in my mind it might be 100 years in the future or something. I had no idea that it would be not only during my lifetime, but that I would be here. I would at least be called back to work with it now in the thresholding chamber, which is the case. Okay, to continue with the reading. Over a year ago, so if this was 1994, it would have been 1992 or 93, I was given a video on Dr. Norma Milanovic, who, through the guidance of the Ascended Master Kuthumi, had been instructed to have a physically built pyramid called the Templar, and it is to be for the purpose of allowing all seekers to participate directly in the spiritual evolution of their planet through a unifying energetic spiritual matter synthesis via this incredible temple pyramid. I was told by Thoth at that time that in the future I would be working with the capstone of the pyramid along with the Isis Templars gathered then. Dr. Milanovic states that the capstone of the pyramid is to be obsidian from Jericho. I heard nothing more on this until I began my cosmic directives toward Crestone. I then discovered that the Templar pyramid was to be constructed in the San Luis Valley, the Valley of the Golden Disc. So in other words, even before I had any idea or even knew about Crestone, Colorado, or the San Luis Valley, never heard of it, and had no idea that this pink pyramid, this Templar pyramid, would be built there. I was told, found the video on, or given the video by Norma on the pink pyramid. I watched it, and Thoth told me I would be working with the capstone, the Jericho capstone. Then, 2 years later, over a year later, I find myself being called a Crestone, and I find that's where the pyramid is going to be built. So you can see the synchronizations there. Interestingly, I am to be working there with an etheric pyramid, which Thoth calls the Temple of the Golden Star. It will be a manifestation of the ancient vortex now in the process of being reactivated in the valley. The blowhole of this vortex is the great sand dunes located in the valley not far from Crestone. The crystalline sand of the dunes, I am told by Thoth, contains the memory seeding for the sacred tribes of Earth and their Zuvuya, a return path to the stars. I am to be guided in opening the scroll for this memory seeding using a special crystal and a specific procedure. Once accomplished, seekers may come to the dunes to receive their memory seeding initiations. Apparently, the Golden Star Temple is an etheric double of the future Templar Temple. I say apparently, and you know, it is and it isn't. In retrospect now, I see the Templar Temple as definitely an aspect of this Golden Star Temple, but not a duplication or an etheric double of it in total. And I say this is my assumption based on the information given me thus far, so I make it clear it's my assumption there. The Golden Star referred to here is the sun star Mazuriel, from which all our star tribes originated. That's a very simplistic understanding. It's not an incorrect one, but it's a very simplistic understanding of the sun star of Mazuriel. If you listen to my more recent, just the other day, in fact, video talk on the Atosic universe, you'll get a better understanding of the sun star Mazuriel, although it's still not fleshed in as far as I would like to take it, which I will be doing in a future video. But that said, it's true that all our star tribes originated from Mazuriel. It is a future reality, yet it has seeded our ancient past, bringing us to this present moment. A complex thought, but then Thoth insists that all complexity is in the mind and not the thought. When the Ark of Grace, that's the sacred Ankh, is brought into its chamber of the thresholding, its base will lock into an opposite force field that contains crystal lattices of light programs, software, if you will. I know little at this time concerning its function and purpose other than the following. 1, there's only one other thresholding chamber for the great Ark on the planet, and that is in Tibet. The Tibetan monks of Crestone have stated that they feel Crestone will soon be receiving the crown chakra of the planet, which is being transferred from Tibet. Well, that's interesting because there's a lot to be said about this. I don't want to get too far off topic, but this area is the Crestone of the Ascension Temple. The Crestone of the crown chakra of the planet is the North Pole, because according to Thoth, you have to look at the planet, the whole sphere of Earth, as a body. If you look at it as a body, then the chakras are within the body. The central sonatoma is the heart, or is it the solar plexus? I think it's the heart. Maybe it's a combination of both, because it's not exactly the same as we have up here. I'm not going to go into all the chakra positions because I can't remember them right now. I have to look them up. But the point is that it runs down through the pole, through the planet. So you can't have, so Tibet wouldn't be the crown chakra of the planet. I would have to look into that from Thoth and see what kind of crown chakra that is that they feel is being transferred to Crestone. That's an interesting point. I'm going to make a note of that because I want to see what the corollary is. I don't doubt that there is one, but I just don't know what it is at the moment. So the next purpose, the light program purpose, is to the Ark of Grace. In its thresholding chamber will interact with the Templar's Jericho capstone, regardless of the Templar pyramid's location on the planet. I would say, this Jericho capstone is very much already, the whole pink pyramid, the whole, Templar pyramid in its capstone is in place. It's just not physically in place. And it is a fractal or a part of the greater Golden Star Pyramid. So the Jericho capstone is real, and it does exist. It just doesn't exist within our sight. And Norma's hope for building it physically has not yet come about. I say yet, So it's hard to read it one sentence without having to go back and explain all these things. Let me try it again. The Ark of Grace, it's the sacred on, in its thresholding chamber, will interact with the Templar's Jericho capstone, quickening it to the harmonic of the Jericho matrix it was intended to receive centuries ago. I also want to say that here, when it states there's only one other thresholding chamber for the greater ark, and that's in Tibet, well, that shocks me. I didn't remember that because I was assuming through the years that any place the ark landed, like in the Sinai and all these places, were thresholding chambers. And I think I've been stating that. So I've been misspeaking if that's the case, because he's saying here that it's only one thresholding chamber. I mean, two, Tibet and Crestone. These others, you could say, were pseudo thresholding chambers because they had some device that the ark was sitting in. So again, this is a note of reference, and I would like to get back to this with him and find out if there's only two thresholding chambers for the ark, what are the other places that it's been, because it's been several places. Okay, we go to, let's see. I have now been in Crestone nearly 3 months. This is the time of the writing of this article. In all the journeys and sacred places to which I have relocated for my work, from Salt Lake City, Cortez to Hawaii, I find Crestone and the Baca Grande to be the most personally transformative and certainly richest in spiritual activity, at least at this point in time. I would have to still say that. Since this time, I have been to Santa Fe, lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and then, of course, the larger portion of time in the Hawaiian Islands, first for 6 months in Maui, and then for the rest of the time in Kauai. And those were powerful places, are powerful places, a lot of energies going on, a lot of work accomplished in those places. But I still have to say, it's more personally transformative for me here. And it is very rich in spiritual activity, more so for me, my awareness level, than any of the other places I've ever been. To continue with the article, Thoth is telling me more about the Tuatha De Danann, first tribe, race, who have returned from their otherworld dimension into the abandoned cavern city of Tasig, here in the Sangres. The Dinan, once again, much has been written on this in past Temple Doors issues, are an ancient race who are a result of genetic mixing between the ancient Hebraic, Celtic, Hyperborean, and She, or fairy races. This particular tribe of Dinan is very old and undiluted and has been in another dimension since the early stages of intermixing of species, human and fairy. It is this tribe which are the guardians and facilitators of the Ark of Grace's future relocation to the Valley of the Golden Disk. I've had several powerful vision experiences with these Crestone Dinan. I only wish I were an artist so that I may bring to life their expressive and unique faces and style, which is an obvious mixture of cultures, races, and indeed species. Well, this was before I started getting into my art, but of course all my art is digital now. And so when I had Poser, I could actually create some of these faces a little bit better. I can't now because I don't use Poser anymore because they absolutely ruined it. The future, the Poser versions after the one I was using, were just totally wrong. So I can't do that anymore, unfortunately. Maybe something else will come along to allow me to do that because I'm just not going to try to organically create these faces. I have some skill in that, but I don't have the patience, to sit there with a pencil or something and try to draw a face. Doesn't work for me. Okay. So anyway, to return here, after I was given my first information from Thoth on the Danan's return to the valley, in which he told me of their previous time here, I was amazed to come across an article in Fate magazine, June 1994. And I'm quoting here: Colorado inscriptions threaten our view of pre-Columbian America by Chas C. Clifton. So I'm saying, in the article, Mr. Clifton writes about inscriptions on cliffs in southeastern Colorado. These markings are identified as the ancient Ogham script, once used in the British Isles and Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. It was employed by speakers of Celtic language, primarily Gaelic. The location of this site is very near the Colorado-Oklahoma state line, near the town of Springfield, Colorado. The three main archaeoastrological sites mentioned in this article are Crack Cave, Picture Canyon, Colorado, the Anubis Cave Complex, Oklahoma, and the Sun Temple, Colorado. All lie between Arkansas and Cimarron rivers. Mr. Clifton states that all contain inscriptions that the authors of ancient Celtic America and others translate from Old Irish to refer to the sun and the calendar. In his article, Charles Clifton continues, one inscription, an apparent star map at the Sun Temple, seems to refer to a conjunction of Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus in the constellation Gemini in early August 471 CE, Common Era, equivalent to 80. Since the publication of the ancient Celtic America, some of the southeast Colorado pictographs have been dated by Ronald Dorn, one of the nation's experts on dating rock inscriptions, to be 2,000 years old. It is of interesting note that these areas contain the words Anubis and Sun, and in the Anubis gathering, and chariot, as in the Anubis gathering and chariot of the sun. The Anubis gathering was mentioned also that this area was to be an Anubis gathering. Now that's, I'm not going to go off on that because there's just too much there, but just bear that in mind. And now here we see in the pictographs, Anubis is mentioned, and also sun. We would have chariot of the sun, which is Thoth's Merkaba of souls that accompany him in his work, not physically, of course, but, energetically. And also, of course, we have heart of the sun and all of these other solar impressions here. Lost my place. Thoth and chariot of the sun, sun's history of the Crestone Dinan has not been in its entirety revealed to me, but the following is the information I have thus far received. They first came to the Valley of the Golden Disc and its attendant Sangre de Cristo and San Juan mountain ranges when their souls were among the Sunbo clan, the master builders, who set the sacred geometry of the earth in the first millennium. At that time, the thresholding chamber for the Ark of Grace was installed, synchronous to the one placed in Tibet. These same souls return now as Dinan, traversing time, to be received in 1994. They have made an appearance at least one other time in between these two time frames, when they built the now empty city inside the Sangres, which Thoth calls Tasig. They left the city to be guardianed by a mixed race of Native American Danans, who still live in the underground chambers and guardian whatever of great value the city apparently still contains, foremost of which I imagine is the thresholding chamber. Again, I imagine is the thresholding chamber. Well, yes, the thresholding chamber is not in the city, though. It's in this enclave within the Mount Challenger, but the city could very well be nearby to guardian, or at least be in part to be guardianing the thresholding chamber, and now the ark within it. Now the Dinan have returned through dimension and time. Their plans, while by no means completely revealed to me, do appear to be primarily the preparation of this region for the return of the Ark of Grace. I am also told that the contingent group of Celts within the Dinan blood, with some Dinan blood, later came into the region as they considered it sacred ground from stories of the hierarchical tribe of Dinan in their ancient histories. Installing the temple grid. Once relocated to Crestone toward the end of August 1994, myself and several colleagues began to work as assigned by Thoth and his Chariot of the Sun on installing the grid for the etheric temple. There were four main components to this project. One, establishing an Areopax, or Isis Eye. Of course, followers of my work certainly will know about the Areopax. It is the central dynamism for creating portals and maintaining it, stabilizing them, and operating them in a high metatronic state so that they cannot become corrupted. This stabilized the time field in the area so that we would not upset any natural currents in the process of our altering the magnetic patterns necessary for installing the grid. This synergy was performed in a location just outside my new home, an A-frame in the midst of a pinyon pine forest on the slopes of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. I have to stop again and say, when I rented the house I'm in now, I rented it without seeing. Well, I saw little images on a Skype phone. This is this room and this is that. I didn't even know when I rented it that when I walked into what is now my office, I would look right out the window at Creston Stone. There's not that many places that have that kind of perfect view, perfect up close view of the mountain where the sacred on is that I am working with. So it was amazing when I walked into this house and saw that. But it's also amazing that not knowing where my address is, I should not say it on the video, not knowing where this address would be, that when I was being driven here, my first, coming into Crestone, first time in 17 years, and my friend Allison was following the GPS to get me to my new home, there was my old home, the A-frame, where the Areopax was installed within walking distance, my walking distance, even as little as I can walk from where I now live. It's just down the street. It's not on the same street, but when the street dead ends, just down a little ways here. There it is. It's the cul-de-sac. We were on a cul-de-sac where the A-frame, and next door is the cabin where our offices were. We rented both buildings. So I'm basically within the Areopax field, the inner circle of the Areopax field, because it extends out far enough that I would be here in this house. So, you know, go figure, but there it is. Back to my article. The second point being given here is to bring the charge of the central sun atoma in the center of the earth upward into our working field to act as a central anchoring, creating a moving salah or still point that moves through time. For this process, we were led by Thoth and Chariot of the Sun to a ziggurat built atop a small tor-like hill knoll in the valley just below the ascending land leading to the mountains. The ziggurat was constructed by an Eastern gentleman who was married to a princess. He built it for his religious prayers, placing it in alignment with his home. I don't think that's entirely correct. I think he built it to hopefully that she would marry him. And he did do his prayers there and everything, but she never married him. So I got the story a little wrong here, but I'm not quoting Thoth here. I'm thinking that I have it straight in regard to the history of this area. So anyway, but this ziggurat, of course, I've done videos on, written on extensively and whatever, so you should know about that if you're following my work. From this vantage, a ceremony was performed through us for this anchoring procedure. Okay, 3, the actual installation of the Temple Mar, the Golden Star Temple node that's connected to the Greater Temple Mar, which was the defining matrix of this planet for New Earth ascension dynamic programs, and it's still in place and it's still powerful, but it is now nested within this even greater Pyramidus radius matrix. So anyway, the actual installation of the Temple Mar Golden Star Temple was higher up at the entrance to a mountain pass. Here we were instructed to set certain crystals and stones bearing in the center one of the hollow crystals, the white topaz stones that I still have some of that we were using for that purpose, that has been holographed with the entire energetic of the whole Temple Mar, as it was first installed on the Mogollon Rim in Arizona, because that's the center of the whole Temple Mar installation, is at the Mogollon Rim in Arizona. So 4 is the reactivating the seed crystals of the sand dunes for future DNA reprogramming. These dunes, so Thoth tells me, are largely a product of a mountain that was disintegrated by an interdimensional cosmic event eons ago. The sand crystals are charged with this comet from the future, linking the dunes to the Missourial consciousness. Their tiny clocks were reset through our facilitation, calibrating these crystals to remove ancient implants at the cellular and genetic levels, which would indicate it had been tampered with at some point in time. And I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again in regard to this, that just recently, within the last few months, I saw a video in which Chris O'Brien, whom I used to know when he lived here in Crestone, but he still does a lot of investigation and videos and commentary on the San Luis Valley. And in this video, a more recent video, recent to my time now, he was stating that he had the official statement from the Sand Dunes National Park is that the sand, an enormous amount of sand, blew in to the valley, simply blew into the valley at some point. Well, Chris, being a geologist, among other things, knew this was impossible, could not happen. And he gave all the reasons on the video for this. So he talked to the park people that he knew, and he's got his inside with them, and he presented them with this. He said, you guys know this is not right. This is impossible. And they said, yeah, we know, but we don't know how the sand got here, and it doesn't even match, anything in the valley, and it's impossible for it to be here. So we have to tell the tourists something. So that's what we say. Well, I didn't know that, of course, when I received this and wrote it. And the reason it doesn't match anything is because it's been charged with this comment from the future. So to continue, I was given an article from the May 1994 MUFON UFO Journal entitled High Strangeness in the Colorado Valley. To quote from this text, in a relatively remote area of southern Colorado lies the spectacular Sangre de Cristo mountain range, whose jagged 14,000-foot peaks thrust skyward from 7,000-foot valleys in a roughly north-south straight edge. Recently declared a national wilderness area, the range holds more mysteries than just rumors of conquistador gold buried deep in seemingly bottomless caves at the nearly 12,000-foot level. Long before the white man ever came to the San Luis Valley, which is bordered by the Sangre de Cristo to the east, Indians spoke of the sky people and flying baskets, and of being led to safe underground caverns by the ant people during seismic upheavals. The valley, which has reputedly never seen conflict in the history of the world, is still considered sacred by numerous Indian tribes. So Thoth states that an ancient vortex sealed, or Thoth has stated to me that an ancient vortex sealed after Atlantis' final collapse is being reopened in the region. They wished me to facilitate the installation and essential programming of a Temple Mar at Crestone, an etheric temple linked to the main Emerald Mar temple anchored on the Mogollon Rim in Arizona, to the inner plane capstone known as the Telos Akara, which is, situated over the Eye of Ra, the cosmic tear. The new Temple of Mars to be called the Crestone Golden Star Temple. It will channel the divine Solarian rays from the third millennium golden star Mazuriel into the planetary consciousness of the second millennium reality. Mazuriel, according to the Thoth and Chariot of the Sun, is the creation star of all the Solarian shepherd races from Earth, Orion, Pleiades, Sirius, and other star fields. It is both in our future and in our past, but it is to the future it now calls us. All Earth's humanity has both Nephilim and Solarian paragenetics. Out of the Nephilim, we can see the Anunnaki, but they're not the whole picture. And thus consciousness. It is our Solarian mind that will lead us through the stargate of the Metatron into the full spectrum of our pure gem Merkaba bodies. Once the star of Isis, enters the work with the vortex. I'm not sure what it means by the star of Isis. Oh, that's what I was calling the mystery school, which is now the New Earth Star Inner Academy. It's hard to keep up with all these names. So once my mystery school enters the work with the vortex and the Crestone Golden Star Temple, Solarian mind will begin to activate in what Thoth calls the blowhole of the vortex, the Great Sand Dunes National Monument in the San Luis Valley. He relates that the crystalline sand of these dunes is charged by the vortex with the memory seeding of our Golden Star heritage. Seekers will be summoned in the heart and mind to return to the seeding ground in order to receive memory from the quickening beads of the crystal light. I'm going to put this on pause for just a moment. So it was just a little later after that information was written that Sha'Maia and I facilitated a memory seeding event, guided by Thoth, of course, at the sand dunes. People came from all over to participate in the whole Crestone event, which the main thing was the memory seeding, but there were other things involved. But so this was a joint, an activation on a certain level that all these participants were participating in with us. So we went to the dunes on a very, very clear, almost cloudless day. It was in the summer sometime, can't remember exactly the date. And there were about 10, 11, 12 of us, something like that. We gathered in a circle on the dunes. Again, just no breeze, not a wisp of air, sun. Fortunately, I think it was rather probably not in the hottest part of the summertime, because as I recall, we were still not too hot. But yeah, the sun was beating down pretty heavily. So we all sat down and we began the procedure that Thoth had given me. When we got to the point of the actual procedure, not the introduction part and preparing and all of this, when we got to that point and we started it, 5 minutes, about 5 minutes into the procedure, these huge clouds started pushing over the dunes. I mean, they were dark, dark clouds. It was so dramatic because you had this blue sky, and then these huge dark clouds started rolling over, and a wind came up like, I cannot tell you. This was a wind. So there was no rain, as I recall, but just this huge wind, these dark clouds. The sky changed entirely. The whole atmosphere changed. And as the wind was blowing, it was kind of comical because everybody had been stretched out on their towels, blankets, or whatever on the dunes. They were lying on their backs, really out of it, because 5 minutes in, they were really out. Their mouths were open. They were just, totally in another space. And here come, then they were covered with lotion, sunburn lotion. So as this wind starts blowing the sand over us, everybody became little sand images, and they got sand in their mouth and everything. And I kept reading. I was holding on to this paper for dear life because the wind just wanted to tear it out of my hands. But I kept reading, my voice loud as I could get it over the sound of the wind. And when I finished it, I swear to God, when I finished it, like 3 minutes later, not even 3 minutes, 1 minute later, poof, the clouds left, the wind stopped, the sun came out, perfectly like it had been before. It was absolutely incredible. Everybody sort of sits up in a daze because they didn't even sit up when all this started. You would think immediately people would start grabbing their blankets and, huddling down with protecting themselves from the wind and the sand, but they didn't. They just lay there. So when it was over and the vision was stopped, you could feel the energy just click off, people started sitting up and they were just covered with sand, and they looked at themselves and they started like spitting out sand from their mouths. I don't think some of them even knew that all of that had happened. They were so out of it. So I just had to share that because it was an incredibly dramatic situation. Okay, so now we're going to something else that came through that same date, and it was a question by me, answered by Thoth. Several questions by me, actually. And here they are. Now, this isn't from the perspective of 1994. How safe is it in line with future cataclysms? By that, I mean this region. Thoth answers, in the next 30 years, there will be some earthquake activity, but on a plane such as the region is topographically, it is not what we consider a major danger zone. Also, the more light activity centered there, the greater stability physically. As a golden Taya, that's a sacred land area, it is destined to ascend in the first stages of LP40. And of course, again, all of you have heard this ad nauseum that are part of my group, but those that may not know what we're talking about here, it doesn't mean that the land just rises up in the air. It means that the light codes of this land are preserved and carried through into the new earth, and they become a part of that new earth vibration. Okay, so, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. A cat just fell into my trash pan. I thought we'd started our ascension already. Okay, so let's see. Is that cat still? I guess he's not. Cats, they can get into anything and everything, especially when you don't want them to. So then I ask, looking at the Colorado map, it appears that Crestone is just within what you call the medicine wheel. Is this so? So surprise, it is. Then I ask, would this be a possible, oh no, I don't need to, let's see, don't need to read that, just a minute. Here, also, on a scale from 1 to 10, just how does it rate generally for a sacred living area, center point, and retreat for anyone, not just for us personally. And Thoth said, well, I say, I'm sorry, would this be a possible location? And then I say, how does it rate? And Thoth is saying, yes, it would be. We refrain from rating it due to the karmic and spiritual needs of the individual, but it is an excellent location for those who are called there. And then I say, you mentioned opening a vortex in the area. Is this something you might have in mind for me to work with? Oh, and I already talked about that. I read that in that other article, which it was reprinted in, so I'm not going to read it again. Let me make sure. Yes, it's all here. Okay, so I believe that I finished reading what I needed to read to you, and it is the lion's share of material at this point on this topic. But now I want to say some more. Okay, so I'm going to pause just a moment to get myself recalibrated with Thoth for this purpose. So let us review some elements here. As you notice in the picture of me standing before the round table, May matrix altar in my home here in Crestone. Now, this picture was taken just with our Sholar gathering this few weeks ago. So it would have been in July, I guess. So anyway, I know I sound like a fruitcake, but I can't remember whether it was June or July. It's like when something like this happens and I move on to the next part, it's like, where did that go in time? Was it last year? No, it was yesterday. So I don't know. But anyway, it was rather recently in linear time. And so this is as the altar appears now, is what I'm trying to get at. So you can see, of course, the Sword of Light, which is a recent addition. This is one of Tom Ledden's famous selenite swords. And Thoth requested that I have one, so I procured it with some donations from supporters. And the sword, as I have written upon, and you know this already, those that are keeping track of all of this, but just for the purpose of people that don't know, this sword, all of Tom Ledden's swords are amazing. They're not only made of selenite, but in the handle is a proprietary, as he calls it, combination of 500 crystals, waters, prayers, just all kinds of things in that handle. And believe me, when I pick up that sword, it's heavy. So whatever it's been placed into, what solution that's solidified and put into the sword, is quite heavy. On the bottom of the sword is a inverted pyramid made of shungite, which you all probably know is a very powerful interdimensional crystal. So when I take hold of that sword with all the hosting matrix skulls on the altar and the Andara crystals and their stones from all over the world. You can't really see the whole altar here, but there's really a lot of sacred things on that altar. And of course, I have other altars in the room, and behind my shoulder there, you can see the Christus Saphara altar with the special elixir that Thoth had me make and works with the energies of the sacred On and the planetary Christos grid. So sometimes I walk into that living room, which I really don't live in. You know, it's just when people come in to visit, whatever, they sit down there, but I don't have that many visitors. So usually it's just for sacred procedure. And so I'm not in it all the time. And when I walk into that living room to work with the altar or whatever, usually on a daily basis, I'm floored by the energy of it, the change of energy between the rest of the house, which is still nice energy here. But when I walk in there, wow, you know, I can immediately tell what's shifted, what's changed. I can feel things that are different or not different, you know, it's just all there. So that said, this arrangement on the altar was recently given to me to do by Thoth. I had a lot of these crystals on the shells, and the crystal skulls were on one little table, sort of lined up. together like little soldiers. And so when Thoth had me take the dining room table as place to put all of these things, and I put them in the circle round before even I got the sword. It was just the rest of the things. They just lit up like Christmas trees. I mean, the energy frequency change was amazing. And then when the sword was added, whoa, it all just hit the ceiling. And yet it's very smooth. It's not chaotic. It's not overpowering. It's very smooth energy, but it's formidable. And I stress this because the Rastaru, heart of the sun table, the table that is now within Mount Blanca, under the sand dunes, along with the Templar crystal skull, dweller crystal skull. This is a powerful denominator of the whole Grail current on the planet. And it seems to just be updwelling through this very simple, contemporary, round wooden table that was in the house. It was the only piece of furniture that was in the house. All the rest of the furniture was, God bless them, donated to me by people in the area. But the table was in the house. So it's part of the rental house. And now it has become something else. So let us look at the heart of the sun, because that card, what Thoth is guiding me to do right now is to go to the actual Gaia Matrix book and read to you more about this, because I just quoted a little bit in that. So we're going to study the heart of the sun here for a moment. All right, I have it before me now. I'm not going to read you all of it. It's extensive and it doesn't all relate directly to our topic here. So I'm just going to, I had given a little bit of it in the text that I read you, but there's just a little bit more to be said here. The heart of the sun corresponds to Merlin's efforts to rescue and restore the original plan of the Grail. Merlin is a wayshower of the new earth consciousness, similar to the ancient gods of learning, such as the Egyptian Thoth, Greek Hermes, and Judeo-Christian Melchizedek. These are mentors who work behind the scenes of the development of the solar system through sacrifice. The round table of the Etherean legend embodies the new pattern of consciousness for the new earth. The round table consists of equal places for individual endeavors, all incorporating the common purpose of the enlightenment of humanity. I realize I read this before, but I want to read it all together here. Solar ecology is the ecology of awareness of the unity of you and the social collective, the earth, the solar system, the universe as a whole within the source of sources. Now this part that I didn't quote before, and I'm reading to you now, this part relates very much to the plan that Thoth gave me when, not long ago, when this Rastaru sun table, I'm going to call it now, he calls it Rastaru, but I'm also going to refer to it as a sun table, was taken from beneath, transported from beneath the Great Pyramid of Giza, where I had seen it many, 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 many years ago, and brought to be within Mount Blanca, White Mountain, under the sand dunes. And when that happened, he told me that together with the Grail Logos, which is within, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering, so is within the Templar skull, dweller skull, that the Grail Logos and the sun table will open up a pathway to allow humanity to sit down at the table. In other words, especially the sun table itself, it is the energetic, now in its proper place to work with the sacred on, with the Grail Logos, and all the other aspects that are coming forth that are yet to come, the treasures that are yet to be delivered to this valley. But the sun table is the one that rectifies. That is the energy, as it states here in Rowena Kreider's words. It is the solar ecology of the awareness of unity of you and the social collective, the earth, the solar system, the universe as a whole within the source of sources. It's a collective. And he indicated that this table, provided it was connected and linked to all its parts, and that includes the sacred on and all these pieces, but the table itself generates the frequency that will be crucial in drawing the nations of the world together, the tribes of the world together. Let's put nations aside and say, as they are now, and say tribes of the world, the solar tribes of the world together. And as the solar tribes unite, so the pseudo tribes, the dark tribes, I don't know if I want to even use that term because it's so polarizing, but they are, the anti-grail. See, Thoth speaks of the grail and the anti-grail, the tribes of the grail, the people of the grail, and the people of the anti-grail. And I believe we know who the anti-grail is being represented by, or the souls of thereof, in our world political system right now. The elite, the secret government, whatever you want to call them. Thoth calls them the One World Legion, the owl. And their representatives such as the ones that are in power now. So these are members of the anti-grail family, or controlled by them. But the Rastaru table, which is basically the Atlantean Rutan solar table in a duplicated form underneath the sand dunes here. That is a frequency, or contains a frequency, that can help to draw people together from the solar tribes. Now, why do we speak so much of the solar rather than the lunar? Well, the moon reflects the sun, so it's still solar energies. The lunar energies are solar energies which have been placed in a sort of a special field of reflection, of deep reflection and inner going inward. So it's the sun pulling you inward. The star sun is the sun radiating you outward. But if you connect the two of them, as far as Thoth is concerned, the lunar energies are just another aspect of the solar energies. So in this context, we can see heart of the sun is representing both. And it's the heart of the sun, because at the very heart, the very center, the atoma, that is where the truth lies. That is where the true sovereign experience of the soul is made manifest. So to read a little more in this Grail version part of the Heart of the Sun, it's under Grail, she says. Some of this I just read you, but I'm going to keep reading here. The pattern of the great sun temple of Atlantis on the Isle of Ruta embodied the teachings of the Grail mysteries during Atlantean times. Merlin brought the mysteries from Atlantis to Europe and founded the Hibernian mysteries, the vestiges of which are still found in the Celtic Grail legends. Merlin's mandate came from Narada, the great primordial being who guided humanity with the great solar pattern of a central sun surrounded by 7 planetary forces. In the Heart of the Sun card that she presents here, matrix that she presents here, initiation stage of the Grail mysteries, you are challenged to find others with a common purpose to nourish and enlighten all sentient beings. This can be accomplished by getting in touch with the feminine within you simultaneously with finding your mentor. The succession of the Grail mysteries depends on finding both guidance and feminine purity and nourishment. Merlin is the magician within you that can find a lover of the feminine, wherein the round table fellowship can flourish through an heir. This lover is your courageous spirit, symbolized by Lancelot, who can see the successor to the Grail. This chasm between sun and earth, spirit and body, inspiration and the social order can be healed in part by your deep, intense spiritual experience of the sun behind the sun, the capital S sun behind the little s sun. Wow. And when I read this now, I'm being infused with the direction of working with the heart of the sun, a protocol, maybe an ongoing teaching of some kind. I don't know at this moment. I hesitate to say more because it's just filling me with the energy, but the energy has to find its place in 3D facilitation. And I don't know how that's going to happen yet. But this heart of the sun that we're talking about here, working with the solar table of the Rastaru, and of course, all the attendant factors. Remember, the sacred on has not been diminished by any of this. It is the capstone of all the work that's being done in the valley and of all the work that's being accomplished through the crown chakra of the Ascension Temple. However, each part of it has a powerful presence, and the Rastaru table has a very powerful presence in regard to uniting the races, the star races of the sun here on planet Earth. Now, bringing them together in a concordant manner so that order can be restored, divine order can be restored on this planet. I'm going to pause again and see if there are any last words before I conclude with this video. So I asked, though, if there was anything I needed to conclude with in this particular video. He asked me to go back to the Gaia Matrix Oracle book and to open it, just to open it with his overlighting at quote unquote random. And I did, and I expected to come across a card, you know, one of her cards in the deck, but instead I went, it opened to another portion of the book, which is symbols, dialogue with archetypes, because a lot of the archetypes that are used in the cards, then in this last part of the book, she delves into these particular archetypes within themselves, what they mean as she received them. And so I open it to, under the old earth formative world, number 9, heavenly powers. So it's not long. I'd like to read this to you because both did ask me to do so. Here we are. Whatever I may think I still have many questions. Oh, let me read that right. I didn't read it right. Whatever I think, I still have many questions. The sound of the synthesizer fades with the visage of the trickster, and now I behold 2 heavenly beings with the light of the stars, suns, and planets in their bodies. A whole orchestra of violins is sounding, and I feel a new possibility emerging in my life. The figures are swirling around a central point, and patterns of heavenly spheres emerge from the violin sounds. And so, under the heavenly powers, in this particular, where I opened the book, is 33 vortex natura naturans, meaning naturing, spiral of invisible initiatory energy. So here is the dialogue. Who are you and where did you come from? Heavenly Power speaks. I am the source of nature's process and can tell you that thought brings about the whirling processes of my vortex that begin all action. Natura naturans. I hope I'm saying that right, naturans. Nature nurturing is first of all a spinning motion of thought. Do you mean that nature's vortex motion is preceded by thought, born of the human spirit, soul, body, and mind? I thought we humans came out of nature's processes, not the other way around. Heavenly Power speaks. Yes, the vortex of naturans is the beginning of the process of the divine plan as a model of the human. This plan is separated into a harmonious spectrum of frequencies in the laboratorium DA. I'm probably not saying that right. DEI, God in Greek, laboratory of God. And these frequencies order themselves by resonance. How does resonance come into manifestation? Heavenly powers. Resonance is my law of harmonics, which must have time to manifest. Time is a status viatoris, transitional state between two harmonics. Without time, the laborium die, the laboratory of God, could not be used and resonance would not be known. What is it used for? Time as a transitional state can be nothing in itself, even if resonance is carried by it. How does time show itself? Heavenly powers. Time shows itself as a star. Hic et nunc. I can't say these words. N-U-N-C. Here and now. Every star reveals an instantaneous here and now through time as light. Photons are here and now, whereas time is the change of one resonance harmonic into another. The proof of the process of time is in every star. I want to say that again because the cat meowed so loud you probably didn't hear it. The proof of the process of time is in every star. So then Rowena writes, now through the violin sound I hear the steady beat of a drum. The two figures with stars within their bodies fade into prismatic energy that puts me into a trance. A serpent biting its own tail is circling around a dancing figure to the beat of the drum. I wonder how these shifting scenarios are possible. How is it that I hear voices and see visions like this? How can stars be within the heavenly powers body? Shaman, you can know stars by the sphere of their beauty. There are spheres upon spheres of imaginal qualities that you can know directly through the love in your soul for beauty. I'm just going to turn a page here to finish this part. What separates one sphere from another? How can I know one quality from another? The shaman says, imagine spheres of beauty are divided by the augmentation of dimensions. Dimensions separate from each other at right angles. Spheres of beauty are the ever-residing wholes of quality that can be divided in themselves but appear to be so. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. That cannot be divided in themselves but appear to be so. Let me read all of that again. I'm just reading it, for the first time here. Okay, imaginal spheres of beauty are divided by the augmentation of dimensions. Dimensions separate from each other at right angles. Spheres of beauty are the ever-residing wholes of quality that cannot be divided in themselves but appear to be so. And she asks, are dimensions the same as space? The shaman answers, space is my process, whereby dimensions here rise in ever-ascending series from point, line, plane, and cube to hyperdimensions. Space is the process that provides continuity for the augmentation of different dimensions. Both are imaginal. This all seems a mechanism for what you call the imaginal. Does this mean that nature is all in my imagination? Shaman, the forms you experience with your senses come from the imaginal spheres, dimensions, and space first. Your imagination is more real than you think. The spectrum of forms can be arranged in any number of ways. How you imagine the arrangement of the form is your map of the world. And so, I am seeing why Thoth asked me to read this, because we are now at the table of the round, and before us is the map of the world, the coalesced map of the world that is pieced together, or merged together would be a better term, from all our individual maps of the world. In other words, each one of us, as Thoth has said many times to me, carries our own holograph of the universe. So how is it we can collectively see things more or less in the same way? Certainly we have our individual perspectives, and you all watch a car crash, and everybody has different stories about the car crash, but basically the story is the same because we all coalesce our maps, our fragments of the holistic whole. And of course, each holistic fragment as a hologram contains a vision of the whole. So when we come together, we recognize that. The more apart we are, the less we see our similarities, and the less we see our views as the same. So when we come together, this doesn't flatten the dimension. We still have our individual ways of seeing things that helps to create a richness to the whole fabric, a dimensionalizing of it, provided each of us accepts the other's part of the pattern and doesn't deny it. But what is left behind or evaporates is that chasm of disbelief between one another, that what we carry is a part of the same universal whole. The more we come together, the more we see that that is a fallacy, that that is an illusion, that the universal whole is within each of us. And I believe essentially that's what I received from reading these particular passages from Rowena's book, The Gaia Matrix Oracle here. So I believe this is the conclusion for now. And as I said, the heart of the sun is going to be an ongoing topic in one way or another. So I believe, well, I'm not going to go on with that. I said enough for now. And thank you all for listening.